recording. Okay, well, welcome everyone. So this is the overview of Footprint to Wings mission and strategy, and it's kind of like a thing. I would love your feedback, and just want to give you all a sense of what I'm trying to do. So let me share my screen. Oh wait, let me get the thing up first. Whoa. Okay. Okay, you know what I need to do? I'm not as prepared as I thought I was. Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay, so Footprint to Wings. Okay, there you guys are. What can you see? Can you see what I'm seeing?
Yep, we see
screen?
what you're seeing.
Okay, so that is quite a big thing.
Wow.
Okay, so so first of all, I want to introduce you guys to an amazing tool called Miro. I don't know if you can see that. That's Miro.
Yep.
This is brilliant. This is like, I've been struggling with this for 5 years to try to clarify what I'm thinking and doing, but this thing has just, it's like being on steroids. So, all right. So Footprint to Wings. We are, of course, this is the whole picture, but we are a nonprofit organization. And we're a 501c3, which, we have an administration, a newsletter, blog, social media presence. Obviously, we do fundraising to support us, marketing, revenue streams, swag, whatever. So that's, we're an organization. Now, what our mission is, there's who we work for, there's people, and there's products, and there's the problem we address. So, so actually, let me give you that whole overview. So this is the people side, the people and what we go through with people. And then this is the product, the content, the stuff. Because basically the situation is, we're here to solve climate change, right? Ostensibly. And that's a super wicked problem, but it's not the main problem. The main problem is that, people have to solve this problem, right? So there's the mechanics of the problem, which is, like, well, how would you, what's causing climate change? It's these, greenhouse gases, and that comes from our way of life. So there's all this mechanical, technical practices, stuff that we have to change. So we have to understand how that works. But really, it's all about motivating people to work together to accomplish that. So you got those two wings of the problem. And then the deeper problem there, so in a way, climate change is more of a symptom. It's not really the problem. The problem is people. We don't really understand all the different solutions, right? So we need to create a shared understanding. Right now, we don't really share that understanding. There's a lot of confusion about the solutions. And then on the people side, there's, we might say, yes, we want to solve climate change, but often there's a conflicting commitment. There's something else we're trying to do, like, oh, I got to make a living or whatever. So there's solution aversion too. We don't like, because we don't agree on the solutions. Somebody says this is the solution and that may not be. So first of all, how do you guys feel about this problem? The way I'm looking at the problem. Just let me check in right now. Does that seem
that? I really like that a lot, that you say that climate change is a super wicked problem, but it's not our main problem. It's not what this group is trying to address. I like that. Yeah.
All right.
I like it. I like the little images too.
You like the little what?
The little images.
Oh, can I tell you again, this is a great feature of Miro. So everybody should be using this in the world right now. Any image, like happiness, well, okay, that's too easy. Flight, you get 7,000 different images that you can just choose from and just plop them in there. That's a cute little butterfly. Yay. and then you can scale up to infinity. I mean, you can scale up and down, and it's just so cute. Okay, so actually, well, theory of change. So that brings us to, so here's a butterfly because we're going to transform. So the theory of change. So we got a problem, and every nonprofit, you have to say, well, we're going to address this problem. What are we going to do about it? And how is that going to cause change? So, what is our theory of change? And so our theory goes something like this. And also, how does it differ from other theories? So we, can you, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, see here you can change. I don't know what you can, okay. So our theory is, so first of all, there's dominant theories out there. A lot of people working in this space, they'll say that, they'll say climate change is real. Oh, what is going on here? All right, so climate change is real. We have the solutions, we just lack political will. Have you guys all heard that one, right? It's kind of
Yep.
the dot.
Yep.
And now others say, you know, we lack the right price. If we had, the market will solve it if we have the price on carbon. And there's also people like, oh, no, technology is going to come along and that'll do it, right? So these are kind of the dominant ways of looking at the situation. And to me, it's limiting because it kind of takes people, it reduces people. Like if we just lack the political will, that's usually shorthand. Their definition of politics is a politician does something. So if we just vote, your main action is to vote. We get our guy in the office, he does stuff, he'll create a law. This law will magically make everything change. So the way I'm looking at this, so climate change is real, but if you start with climate change is real, then it kind of, you're stuck in a debate about whether or not it's real. So we just shifted, climate change sucks. Yeah, we assume it's real. We're not even gonna question that. It's just, but the situation sucks. And you know, that's just, I wanna right away get into like how people feel about this. It's not whether or not it's real or not, that's the rational part, but it sucks and I feel awful and I don't like it and I wanna deal with my emotions. And then the solutions also suck. So when people say we have the solutions, they're kind of pushing a dominant solution, or they've oversimplified it. They haven't really thought it through. Like if you ask any follow-up questions, they really haven't thought through their solutions. And once they do, it kind of sucks. And then they want to ignore you and just go like avoid that whole discussion and go to like, well, let's just vote for somebody. So this is what we think we really have to deal with if we truly want to solve this problem and go all the way. Like we can do some superficial things, or we can just get stuck in, you know, political back and forth, polarizing argument. But I feel that that won't go the distance. So then it comes to the political will is more like, you know, people want to externalize it and be like the corporations are evil, the politicians. And then I've heard a lot, they get angry. They're like, no, the corporations want you to think it's your fault. But it doesn't matter. At every level, whether you are the corporation or the politician or just a citizen, you know, we're all part of the system and we all have competing commitments, right? So, you know, we might work for a corporation, we might whatever, but we really have to look into these competing commitments and our own mixed whatever. So it's, to me, it's like our teamwork, our own lack of introspection, and of course some other basics like our math sucks, and we haven't developed a shared understanding of the solutions. And so, you know, and also we kind of prefer magical thinking, right? So, so what we need to deal with this is a process. Oh, okay, so this is the one thing that annoys me about this is that I can't really move. Wait, no, I have to shift from arrow to hand. Okay, that's what I mean. Okay, so process. So there's so many excellent processes that we can use. And let me just jump out of this and remind you all that Footprint Wings is turning the race to zero carbon into a national pastime. I should type that up there. So, and we're coaching each state to win. So for the people, I'm gonna just jump over here for a second. These are our core people that like are our team that helps and then this would be our client community, I guess that's what you would say. But so the core here is coaching. So that's our basic MO. Obviously we need donors and we need a board to kind of set this up organization and get these coaches up to speed. Coaches are all about processing and helping people through this complicated thing, right? And bringing out the best in individuals and in the whole team. So yeah, so we got coaches, referees, and gardeners of Eden. I'll get back to that. But going to the theory of change again. So it's a process. There's, okay, so the process I really like, oh, maybe I should, let's see. There's this great book by Keegan and Leahy. And by the way, can you see me or just my screen?
Both.
Yeah.
Oh, good, perfect. So Keegan and Leahy, they have this wonderful way of looking at it. They say, so your visible commitment is, you know, like whatever, like for us, it would be, I want to get to zero carbon. But what you're doing is not doing that. You're, you know, you still drive your car, you do whatever, you know, you're still waiting for the politician to solve it for you and so on, because you've got the hidden commitment, you know. And so what they say is then there's an assumption about this, and then what you have to do to really change that. But if you do not reveal your hidden commitment, you will not solve the problem. So what we want to do as coaches and as our organization is really help people identify that. You have to surface that. in order to address it. You can't just pretend that you've got your commitment and it's just some other corporation that's blocking you. You really got to go in the corporation too. Corporations have, you know, they've got their shareholder value thing, and if corporations could transform, like we would coach the corporation as any other player. Like it's an entity that has, you know, wants to look good, but has this underlying stuff. So the sooner all of this is surfaced for every entity, you know, the sooner we get to
Can you
zero.
make that bigger? Because I can't really see what that says.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Definitely get this book. It's one of the more useful books that I've had. I'm going to actually have a list of like books that I feel are super important for everybody. So yeah, well, I'll give you a moment, but let me just get through the rest of this. So then the other process is, of course, grief, you know, and I just want, you know, so for grief, you know, there's the shock of the grief, then denial, anger, bargaining. So this is, once you get into bargaining, so most people are in denial, right? Like they would be like, climate change is real, would be denial. We have the solutions, but they jump over to we lack political will. And so then you immediately get angry at whoever is stopping you from solving the problem. But what you really need to be doing is discussing how exactly you're going to solve it, this bargaining thing. And then, you know, so, I mean, what's interesting in almost all the processes is there's that bargaining phase. So that's the thing that we want to look at. And then for groups, because this is a collective problem, so we have to think about that. So step one is forming, where people are like, oh, we have to solve problems, so we have to come together. And then arguing. So, and I like then this turns the bargaining into a two-step process, where first you argue with each other about what you want to do, and then you normalize it, and then you start to, and then you perform. Then you're actually getting good at figuring out what to do because everybody knows their place and what's happening. And then finally you solve the problem and you have a big party, you adjourn at the end. So this is a famous model, you know. And then this process is also super important. A lot of people think they agree because they haven't really fully, you know, communicated. So they have an assumption, they're like, yeah, we want to solve climate change. Of course we do. Yes, we do. But you have very different ideas about what that looks like. And then when you put it out on paper, when you get it down on the table, then you're like, oops, wait, that doesn't work. And so then you have a bargaining process. And then finally you do truly agree. So, so these are three processes. There's many other processes that kind of have the same thing, where people have to come together and create a shared understanding. And then they can get on to act and do things, right? So we want to facilitate that process and make it as genuine and lasting and as possible. And so the model that we use is, of course, the game, because that's a process that contains a lot of these other things. The game of racing to zero carbon. And because also this is difficult stuff to do, we want to make it a little playful. But the word game is not, I mean, it's not like gamification. It's not, I mean, it's a real life and death, high stakes game. But we just want to be in a playful state of mind so that we can look at everything and really try to bring out the best in every player. And so there's another excellent book about games, actually. Jesse Schell, The Art of Game Design. It's super thick. But it's really brilliant. So one thing it says like a puzzle is a game with a one dominant solution. So we don't want to necessarily go with one dominant solution. We want people to really learn all the mechanics of the game and then really own the game and come up with their own solutions. The other way of looking at a game is, the beauty of a game is it really enables systems thinking. And we want people to see the system and understand the rules, like there's rules of gravity and rules of energy and like limitations and parameters. So you want to get all that, and also how like society, you know, legal systems work and whatever. You want to understand the rules, but then within that you have a lot of room for improv. So a game is basically, you know, rules plus improv. And we're going with a 50-state race because that way people can prototype different solutions and different whatever. So, okay. Yeah, oh, and then the rules of our game are very important. The first state to achieve a net zero carbon economy with the best quality of life wins. This qualifier is super important because some people downplay quality of life.
But Reswan, what happens after the first state achieves it? Is that the end of the game then?
No, because the next round, somebody could get to 0, but with a better quality of life. So the trophy keeps moving until finally everybody's at 0 with the most awesome quality of life imaginable, and we just retire the game. There is, by the way, a trophy, the prize, which is the carbon cup, which is a diamond-studded cup. There's a whole process to get that as we formalize the race. Because, you know, a state, in order to enter the race, would have to, you know, submit a diamond as their chip, and then we add the diamond to the trophy, and also find sponsors. So there's a whole prize committee which have to do that. Oh, and also to formalize the game, so I have it here. You know, we have a whole, like, it would be like the NFL, and, you know, there's a whole organization for that. But that's more advanced. First, let's get this up and running. Okay, so that's our theory of change and why we're going with a game. So that's the spine of the thing. Any questions right now?
Well, I have to say, this is fabulous. You clearly thought this one through very deeply and over a long period of time. And it shows.
I think so too. I think it's phenomenal.
Awesome.
This is really looking at it comprehensively.
All right, cool. Well, glad you think so. Okay, so now let's focus on the people. So who is going to play this game? Let's see. Okay, so where was I? Oh, and finally, there's also, it's a story where there's some narrative infrastructure where I look at the hero myth, but that's extra. We don't need that right now. Okay, so the people. So our people, we definitely need donors, and I cannot stress this enough. I've been doing this all without much funding. So that would be great. There's a lot of work to do and a lot more work coming to flesh this out. So that'd be awesome. And a board, I don't really have a functional board right now. I need people. I got people retiring, so I'm really looking for board members, and they would support the organization while it gets this work done. So that they're crucial, super crucial right there. So then we want to develop the coaching ethic. We want to become the best coaches, and I've been learning so much. Oh, here's another awesome thing about Miro. Wait, shoot. Okay, let me click on this. Oh, you know what? I have to oh, here. So you can open these things up. Boom. Whoa. Okay, so what do coaches do? They unlock the potential of players to be their best. They know the game, plays, and concepts. So they really do know everything. Not everybody needs to. In fact, most people will be overwhelmed by this, and that's of course, like, this is such an overwhelming thing. But the coaches, the coaching class, we who choose to be coaches really want to know this game inside and out, so that we can target that information to the player in their place, because we can see, oh, you're here on the field, and this is what you can do. So the more we know, the more we can support them. And obviously, the more advanced players will want to know more about the game because it's so absorbing. But first, you want to develop the love for the game without the overwhelm. So it might help to be like, oh, yes, okay, what is your thing? Let me focus on you. And as you learn more, right? But the coach does need to know everything. They know the game and the plays, the concepts. They understand players too, their strengths and weaknesses, and what motivates them, right? And then you want to connect those players to the plays in a systematic, joyful, experimental way. And it's very error focused. You're looking for the errors people make, or just different ways to do things, to try different things, because we really have to, we really do. And then you're building capability and teamwork, tackling increments, and the end game. So you're zooming in and out, in and out. You're like, okay, this is what you're doing, and this is how it fits to the whole. And then you're pivoting. You're like looking for pivots. Like, okay, that's not working for you. How about this, right? And this will release the power. Okay, so that's the idea. So the coaches coach the players, teams, and look at overall game strategy, right? The referee class, these are our numbers people. And I'm also trying to figure out a color coding for this. So if you have design suggestions while I go through this is like an initial pass at the thing, but we do have to work on the design. Referees are the numbers. They validate the metrics. They manage the scoreboard. They try to do the conversions, like, well, if you're looking at gigatons, well, what kind of, energy supply creates that? So what are the ratios and the metrics, right? And then the gardeners of Eden, these guys are specifically focused on the planet. And I put this in a way, these three things are kind of like the people, planet, and profit things, or people, profit, and planet. So these guys focus on the people and what their needs are. These guys are the accountability. So for profit, a lot of people, like a lot of corporations, are all about the profit, but they're not really looking at the externalities. So our referees kind of like, they're looking at the money, they're looking at the energy, they're looking at, you know, they account for things. So that's the profit part. And then the gardeners of Eden do have especially, like, they look out for the planet itself, the whole system of the earth. But the coaches are more like, okay, what do people want? And, you know, I'm going to have a good life. What do I do? What's my job? So the coaches kind of look at it all, but those are the more specialized. And then you've got your players. So the players are the individual, which could be the citizen, consumer, professional, student or educator, journalists, entertainers, innovators, experts, data people, philanthropists, politicians, activists, right? So any given player has a journey. They have the things that they can do that they're specialists at, you know, obviously therapists. And, you know, so, and then teams, players get together and they form teams. So you can have your household, a community group. What do you have? The school, university, institution, could be a research institution, or courts, you know, and government, nonprofit activist organizations, right? And so they also have, they're like any given team. They have a process you can help them with, you know, questions to ask, follow-up questions to get them through and seeing things anew. And then of course you've got your state, which is the more formal level. You've got your local government, you've got your state government, and then there's data keepers. So there's a lot of functional data at this level that tracks the specifics of, you know, what land use that's available, you know, what laws are in place to govern that, you know. And of course the NGOs up here, the businesses, would have their own data too. That's very interesting. So, okay, so these are who our players are. And each player needs to be information targeted to them, and they need to see their role. So, and with any given play, like the solar rooftop play, a lot of different players come into play, right? There's the citizen who has to choose it. There's the person who wants to sell to them, who, you know, is just another citizen who works in a retail capacity. Then there's the businesses that supply stuff, and NGOs that want to encourage this, and government. Like, so there's a lot of layers to any given play. So all the players and teams have to coordinate. So what we want to do is, as a nonprofit, how do we take these players through the process from, you know, an isolated individual to a part of a working team? So for any given player, team, or state, you start at the baseline. Well, where are they at? And what are their goals? And then what's their mindset? So you really want to get in touch with who this person is, or who this entity is, what they want, what they're, you know, as we said, they're competing, this thing, you know, their commitments and their hidden commitments. And, you know, how far they want to go, how far they're prepared to go. You know, sometimes people aren't immediately prepared to go anywhere. Obviously, you want to start with the most motivated ones and stuff. But yeah, so you start with assessing them, you know, and where they're at and how motivated they are. And then also, if they are interested in going, what is their own idea of how to get there? So you really want to get in touch with the player. What is their theory of change? You know, are they in the, no, we just need, we have the solutions or whatever? Do they have a specific, like, focus? This is just a thing, I'll skip that. So, and then the start, stop, continue. This is another great thing about Miro, but also a lot of people who do this kind of thing, they start, like, you look at what you're doing in your life and you go, okay, what should I start doing? What should I stop doing? It's not working. What should I keep doing? And so this is fun. You can start, like, filling in these things, like keep on believing. So we want to take people through these processes, various processes, and then the intersecting journey maps, like for any given play that they turn out to be interested in, you know, the play-by-play, what steps do they particularly take? And yeah, so that's the kind of the overall ladder of engagement. And also, let me give opponents. So if this is a game, there are rival states. This is a positive competition, because you want to put the states against each other to bring out rivalry in a positive way, like leveraging tribalism for the greater good. But they're also, and then there's inner conflict. So these are external and internal. So your inner conflict that you have to resolve, and your external is rival states which are actually motivating you to be better and quicker. But also Team Doom would be like the people who are, you know, yes, I want to get every last drop and burn it. That's my job, you know, and I believe in it. And who are you? Like, so they're the Team Doom players. And the Threshold Guardians are the ones who are like, yeah, that's an idea, but it's not that good. So they encourage you to be better in your solution. So that's what your opponents are. All right, so that's players. Any questions, comments?
It seems like on opponents, it should be also maybe people with a closed mind and who think that they have the only answer.
Okay, I like that. Hey, let's put that in. Okay. Oh, that was too small. I think I expanded this. This is so scalable. Okay. Okay, so people with closed minds. Okay. Anything else? Or who think they have the answers? I like that. Yes. So answer limiters. Oh no, I have a cold. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Wait, Susan, I can't hear you. Oh, did I accidentally mute you?
Sorry, I was muted. I knew I was going to do that. One of the key questions that this brings up for me is how people self-organize into teams, you know, what's comfortable for them. I mean, if you're an educator, maybe you would naturally want to be on a school team, but then does that mean you're also not on your own household team? And so I don't know that you want to get into answering all of that right now, but I think that's one of the key questions that I had, when I look at this.
Yeah, no, you are right. We should definitely clarify that. Players play on multiple teams. That is absolutely true. We should make that bigger or something here. All right, yeah. Yeah, that is the one thing. And that's why the intersecting journey map, sometimes you're several places on a map. And sometimes you might not realize that your greatest strength lies in this other role that you're playing that you hadn't even realized was a really critical role. So helping people and teams see their different roles, like see I'm both a consumer and a producer, or I'm an educator. Yeah, and I also have to deal with my household situation. So yeah, definitely. That's definitely a thing.
What about where's the place for data and experts?
Yeah, did I not put them in? Well, I have data expert individuals and then the data keeping institutions, right? So there's institutions. Yeah, so that would be 3 places. And I should color code this. Okay, so let me color code I was making like pink to be data. So this would be where color coding begins to. So okay, yeah. All right. So how does that answer your question? So they're at all levels.
But wouldn't they also be like kind of, I guess they would be the coaches to some extent. You would try to get them to be the coaches too, right?
They're the referees, the data people. The coaches refer to the data to help frame the play. So like in any game, like in football, sorry, I keep going back to football. Everybody understands the score. It's so central to the whole thing. Like, yes, we're all here. We got to run a ball down the field, but we measure, like, did we do it? Did we get that 5 yards or not? Everybody understands that, right? Some people don't. They have a vague, like, well, I kind of was good. I guess the referee said it was good or whatever. But yeah, so the data is ubiquitous throughout it, and it's a core part of it that everybody refers to. Maybe that's why they call it referee. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, so the data is there. It's these are the 3 top things. So the coaches use the data, they measure performance to the data, but the referees themselves keep the data. They really validate the numbers. That's their focus. But yeah, the data has been used by everyone to understand what's going on. And the players should understand how that data works, so we want to make it as accessible to them as possible. Anything else about the people before now I get into the data? Okay, all right. So great, so that actually, yes.
Hey, Chris, I may have missed this part. The hero journey, or that part, I wasn't sure if that's what you meant by the journeys above was kind of like the intersecting journeys, or if that was a different aspect, or.
Well, no, this is like I say, there's any way you slice it. This is another wonderful way of telling the story, and I want to incorporate this because it's the team doom thing. What I find is interesting is the hero myth. You start out in the ordinary world. Here you are. It's like, yay, ordinary world. Suddenly there's a call to adventure. Something happens, an inciting incident. But then, of course, you refuse the call. So this is what I love about this, is denial is a totally appropriate and common. You refuse it. Are you kidding me? I don't want to solve this thing. This climate's fine. Just don't bug me. But then you meet the coach, the mentor who really helps you realize that you can do this, right? So then you go and you cross the threshold guardian. So you pass like some limitation that you had in your head, like we can only do it this way, or I can't even do it, or whatever. And then you face your tests and allies and enemies, and then you face the dragon. You go into the cave of doom, and you face the ordeal, and you win the prize, and you come back home, and yay, it's all great. So the only thing different with us is that this is climate change. The whole world is actually already in the cave. We are part of Team Doom, and Team Doom has to transform, right? So this is more of we want to transcend into a participatory collective journey where we like upgrade the whole ordinary world into not this special doom world, but like a better, like, so it's more of a spiral. Like we really have to upgrade. So I want to play around with this, but it's a very helpful thing, especially for the refusal of the call. Like I don't want to call it denial anymore. It's just refusal of the call. You're refusing the call right now, and that's a normal part of the process. So.
Reswan, there's a very big network that comes out of Princeton. It's called the Deep Time Network with Jennifer Morgan, who's been working on the journey of the hero. She works with Brian Swim and all these people like that. And you could present this to them. This is their whole focus in life, this issue.
What's her name?
Jennifer Morgan and the Deep Time Journey. And I think it's called the Deep Time Network, actually. And I could do an introduction. But you would present this to like thousands of people, and they could get their help about that.
Okay, let's do it. I've left a note. I love Miro. Is everybody like in love with Miro right now? What a great software.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I'm just really being cheap, so I've used the basic version, which is free. But this is all free. Can you believe it? But now to have teams to be able to jump in and, we could collaborate simultaneously in real time. Like we could be like, okay, focus on the one thing and start doing it. So, but you just have to pay for that, but we could definitely upgrade. Okay, so we've got their people. Now what are we doing with these people? And through this process to face the stuff that they actually have to face. Oh, by the way, going back to the hero myth, the quest, our story is there's a sports story, like which sport team will be successful, who beats who, but ours is more of a quest to transcend the planet. We have to go from one state to another. And a quest story, like you think like going for the object, get the golden fleece, get the prize, go and that's like the object of climate change is really getting the world to be nice. That's just part of the story. The big part, the subject is different. Like how we change as people and how our relationships change is the real heart of the story. And a quest myth is episodic, which is perfect for coaching because we want to do this field and this problem and this part of the problem. So all these episodes which add up to the whole quest being achieved. So anyway, it's a useful way of looking at things. All right, but I digress. Where's my little hand. Okay, my hand. Okay, so we got a game. We got our players, and our players, we've got that scoreboard, which is super important, as Lindsay points out. And it's kind of central to everything, like how we keep score. The game is played on fields, and there's plays. And by the way, so our organization, keeping all of this in mind, is going to produce products to help people to really clarify this stuff. We're going to make a playbook. We're going to give talks, speaking on our online platform, a curriculum for schools, different levels. And then the playbook can become workbooks for each state, and then infographics that we're going to make, videos, the coaching clinics, and of course a playlist of music. All right. So the scoreboard and the basics are kind of the beginning, like the metrics here. Oh, let's see. Yeah, so the scoreboard committee comes up with those metrics, and also in connection with the curriculum makers. What we want to teach as coaches, first of all, there's concepts and then there's skills, and the skills are very important. There's two super important skills. So you will get something out of this even if you're not interested in climate change. Social skills and problem solving skills that you can use for any given big hairy problem or any small problem, right? So and social skills, apparently there's this great book called The Optimistic Child, which broke it down, are assertiveness and negotiation. And I'd want to add active listening, which is part of this, but sometimes it bears repeating. So assertiveness is just knowing what you want, because a lot of people just go along with the flow and they don't really figure out what they want, and then they don't know how to ask for it. So we want to help people do that. And then problem solving, like, again, this slow down thing is very important. A lot of people say we have the solutions. They're avoiding problem solving because they kind of want somebody else to take care of it. But yeah, you slow down, take everyone's perspective, figure out what you really want, explore how many different ways to get there, choose a path, try it out, figure out if it works, and then, pivot or iterate. So problem solving is a process. So again, like everything is a process.
Last one. Do you think under skills, under that first one, that you should add being coachable? Like people have to agree to be coachable.
Yeah, I can add that, sure. All right.
That's like a landmark concept.
Is that, yeah, okay. Being coachable. So that's more of a trait than a skill.
Yeah, it's about worldview.
Really, I think it's like a
attitude.
decision people have to make when they if they're doing this. Like I know when you go to Landmark, you have to decide to be coachable in order to actually do it.
Yeah, so maybe making a commitment to being coachable and actually being coachable. But yeah, definitely. We want people to be in this game. And so part of that as a coach, you want to ignite that in people, the desire to be coached. And then part of it does, like, ultimately the player brings so much to the game. I mean, without a player who's really willing to do this, there's no game. Which is, so this is a very player-centered thing. And yeah, the coachability of that player, the desire, the fire, the willingness to, again, listen and learn and want, the desire to do this is very important. So yeah, that's definitely important. So there's the individual skills, and then there's group skills and systems thinking and collaboration, which I don't know if that's a social skill. The beauty of this, we can move, oh shoot. Okay, I locked everything into it, so because this is supposed to just be, but you can move these things around quite easily once you're unlocking them. So yeah, then the team skills of all those stages of team forming. So then the conceptual, math and maps, like really getting a geographical spatial sense of your solutions, understanding, so we're going to develop some concepts to help people through this. And I didn't have enough time to really do this, but this is going to take its own thing. I mean, if you see, I've been working on it with all of the exercises possible, scaling exercises, baseline, carbon calculator method, let's see, emissions per person, the NIMBY coefficient. There's concepts like, units, metrics, get tons of carbon, power and energy, power plants, nameplate capacity factor. These are things that, once you get, at first it's overwhelming. We're going to try to simplify it, but, let's see. But once you get it, it'll all make sense. So, but there is some repetition that's involved, and creating a system that's accessible, and that's all part of the curriculum. And then we're going to turn into exercises. Oh, and then the exercises are, so this is fun. You can do this thing. It's called a Kanban map. Well, I'm using this in a weird way, but like the blue square. People have said that all the land area you need for solar power would take like this one blue square. So we're like, well, does it take that blue square? And anyway, there's exercises that I really have to develop better. I'll do a different webinar about that because that's really important. So then the scoreboard, there's shifting goalposts. People are often talking about different things. They're talking about electricity only, all of the energy. They shift things around. We want to just clarify what the goalpost is, start assessing like fields and like getting the whole game as well as how to break down the increments, the units to use. And then there's different fields that need different ways of quantification. So you've got your energy supply side field, your demand side field, your meta field. There's the Earth itself, which has its own, it is a property, it is a field, it is space, but it's also, you know, got like special attributes that we want to take care of. And then, so you can divide the field by solution type, you know, energy, supply, demand, by player and location, like the field of the self, like your own inner, you know, mental states. That's a field of play that you go through stages and measure. There's your home. There's all kinds of things going on in your home. Then your civilization spaces, like your shops and your offices and your government places. And there's the physical part of them where, you know, you want to change the energy, you know, like the, wow, I am sleepy. Just a lot to go through. But, you know, you want to change the infrastructure, that get the switch to clean energy and the physical stuff. And then there's also the social organization within that space. You know, like transportation has definitely a spatial social organization dimension. Like people live in a certain place for certain reasons. So there's very many different levels to the fields. So we want to start seeing the fields, like what field are you on, or what type, like what angle of the field are we looking at? All right, so and then the plays. So here's, we want to break down any given play in a certain way, and we really want to look at the whole play because people aren't seeing the whole play. And the more you understand of each play and how it interacts with the others, the better. So actually, let me just stop here. Do we have any question on the basics and the scoreboard and the fields? Hello?
You know, so
I need a refresher.
what I had sent you something, I can't remember the last time that Catherine Milquist or something, whatever, was talking about, that if you wanted to have just clean energy, you would have to have all the businesses and houses on smart meters so that they could be turned on and off to match the grid. Where would that be in here?
That is an energy supply side, the grid.
And
The grid is its own field. It's got a lot of issues, batteries, mining, and actually it turns out everything has a mining dimension.
And the grid includes sort of like our homes and businesses and stuff like that, like the end users?
Yeah, the grid connects from your home to the, it does, absolutely. So actually it sounds like we can, okay, so anyway, so let me just, one last overview before we jump into a specific play. So all of this build up and work that we do and we help guide people through problems is to help turn out players who are able to transcend the coach. They master the game, they figure out what they want and they win it, and it's a really thrilling outcome because we all really grow in this process. So it's personal growth and transformation, and it's something that I think the better we get at it, the better we can support our players, the better they get at it, and then it just takes off and it's amazing. And we've created a national pastime of just amazing citizens who are super active and I mean just really empowered. Like everyone is empowered and they're really great at negotiating with each other in a positive way, not in the dominating way, like in a creative way. So I forgot to mention one of my favorite processes is the Pixar process. So I want to, like each of these areas needs to be developed and clarified a bit. Oh, and all of this is going into the playbook that I'm writing, the Zero Carbon Playbook. This is kind of the framework for the playbook. So these will be chapters and, you know, with online supported materials. But, okay.
Can I say something? You might want to have prizes for players who come up with a new, like, innovative play.
That's a great idea. Let's see, prizes for, okay. Sorry, let me, whoa. And how about prizes for players who come up with innovative play? Maybe naming rights. It'd be like the Lindsay, you know, whatever play.
And Rezwan, similar to that, would encourage just whatever ways we can recognize or appreciate the little wins that folks make, right? Like maybe a state hasn't gotten to zero carbon at whatever quality of life that first, like, okay, well, what progress have you made, right? Like with the MVP or the other different ways, not that everyone gets a trophy, like how do you recognize, how do you appreciate folks? You're just trying to take a page from the things that have already worked from these other national pastimes that have caught on like wildfire.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely.
And actually, you should have like team spirit events. Like I'm always thinking of the iGEM competitions at colleges, where there's like they have a jamboree, and the kids are really excited to participate because they're working on a real world problem. And they make team videos, and they make it fun. Basically, they make team songs, and
That's awesome. Cool. All right. Anything else?
I just heard a webinar how a wine company did a play on their industry for zero waste. So I don't know if there's a play or a page that we could take from that, like a zero carbon Zinfandel happy hour, or climate carbonated happy hour, or something like that, of just like, what's the meetup, like getting together over a beverage and just like, all right, so we got to talk through these plays, we got to figure this out, let's add some social lubrication and just start figuring out and brainstorming, or just celebrating, or like, let's just get going.
that sounds great. That's a great idea. That's important.
I love it. Yeah, because sports and beer go together so well. So obviously.
And actually, everybody's so isolated now. So if you could think of a way to make this into like a real social club, that people have their people who, you know what I mean? They find their people.
Okay. Yeah, so there you're going through it together. That's awesome. Oh wow. All right. Any other good stuff? Any stuff doesn't have to be good.
One network we may try and partner with on this, and happy to introduce to their CEO, is Woken Up. It's the new online platform for Gen Z for making progress on the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, I will make a note of that. Sounds like fun. Woke it up. All right. Okay, so let me say, so now say you're here, there's energy supply side plays. This is just one play. Each of these have to be fleshed out. So that's part of the process of writing the zero carbon playbook. But so taking the solar rooftop play, right? Most people think, oh yeah, this is all we need. We're just gonna get solar rooftop. Actually, not most people, but a lot of people just like rooftop. That's what we do. So where did it go? Okay, so now we get into, so any given play, there's a lot going on, right? So first of all, what is the play? It's a solar rooftop play. There's a narrative for the play. So there's the narrative and the metrics. The narrative is like, what actually happens? What do we do? So well, first we have to mine and extract the materials and manufacture solar panels. And then the consumer has to purchase them. So we have to have people selling them, you know, and then they install them. And then you enjoy it, and then you maintain it, and you get that energy. And then finally at the end, you know, you got to dispose of it. And ideally, you want this to be a very circular thing, because the better the play is, the more circular it is. And, you know, so that's something to think through. That's the whole play. That play takes place on different fields. You know, there's where you're going to mine the materials, where you're going to manufacture them, your actual rooftop, and then of course, yay, okay, and where you're going to dispose of it. And then at each stage, so this is the journey, there's benefits, there's risks, there's stuff. So for the mining extraction, you know, you've got your economic, this is the economic layer. So you're gonna make some money, get some jobs. The manufacturing, again, there's the supply chain, you know, and then the sales and installation, and then the homeowner enjoys it. I put corporate here because sometimes the financial thing, there's a risk, you know, you have to pay for it. But there's this great play. Oh, and I should start. That would be one of the great innovations that somebody made. Let me put a little star there. Oh, check this out. Just put a star. Whoa. Okay. Oh, I don't want to. Golden star. So this was a fascinating innovation that really helped solar take off. So I think it's really important to show, you know, to highlight when a great play happened. A lot of people don't realize that people were not buying these until they figured out a good finance mechanism. So that was a good play. So there's a lot of unsung plays that we want to draw attention to, so that people start thinking in terms of like, oh, that's a play, you know, that's an innovation. I didn't even think of that. So, and then finally, this part, the disposal, you know, we're not really clear on. I don't know who's doing that. So, by the way, that's the other thing that the gaps. What are our gaps in information and understanding the play? So one of the first things we do as we go through any given play with any player is like, you know, we got to fill those gaps. We got to identify and fill the gaps. So then, okay, so that's the financial layer, but there's also health and safety. So at each stage of this game, you know, whether it's mining, manufacture, there's safety issues. And then when you have it on your house, well, there would be, you know, fire hazards and maintenance, and then, you know, the disposal. So there's those issues. You know, I'm trying to think of an iconic system. We've got these scales. So if the red scales, that's not good because the bad stuff outweighs, or it could be neutral, or, you know, you get a green like flag. It totally works. And then of course the eco benefits. So here I put, like, I was thinking of the, like, agro-solar, but that's solar, you know, solar farms. Sometimes you can have the solar panels with plants in a way that actually benefits plants because they need less sun or something. You know, some plants benefit from not having too much direct sun. So there's ways to play around with that. But here the environmental issue is like, what's the impact of mining? Maybe there's property rights, or like spills, hazardous spills from the manufacturer. Your neighbors are going to have, there could be a NIMBY factor, and then shade conflicts because your tree is growing and your neighbors are whatever. So there's these layers. And then of course the grid, we got to expand that grid. We got to connect that grid. The batteries. So there's issues. So these are all the things that take place, and all the plays that there's room for improvement. So you're always looking, how do we improve this play? How do we get this better? So the R&D has to be supported. We got to get people to realize that. The best, you know, the best practices, you want to start measuring this. This is a really cool thing I saw about. You know, because the industry is really tracking its waste. So, you know, you want to see which one is doing better and score them. That's another thing to score. You know, and then look at the recycling. People are really looking at, how do we recycle these things? So there's a lot of work being done in these different areas, but we want to, at the end of the day, we want a solution that we are totally satisfied with. So all, you know, and we have a planet of 8 billion people, and these are all supposed to be doing their jobs. So we just want to start tracking that people are doing it so that we can have a wonderful world that we don't worry about. And then, okay, so then there's the emotional journey. So, you know, people are mining, whatever, yay, I get my solar disposal. So we've got that going on. The player journey is what actually people do. The meta plays, like policy and financing instruments that made it work better. Building codes. Sometimes you might have to upgrade those in order to get more area on your roof that you can have solar panels on. So there's issues that we want to raise. And then, you know, we want to see how long it takes to do this. Okay, so, and then of course the metrics would be the context. You want to say how much of your state energy can come from this play. So that's where the first gigawatt down concept that you've all seen the video works, because that kind of anchors the context. And then how it scales, like, so one house is this much, you know, worksheets to calculate, get people to really understand this in the context. So because we want them to do the increment and win this play, and then also realize how much more they have to do. And yeah, so just bottlenecks. So these are things to look at. I'm still, I want to clarify that this is a lot, and I want to try to get it as clear as possible. But what's going to happen is there aren't really that many different plays. So, and then the same concepts get repeated with different plays, you know, in the home or out of the home. So eventually it all becomes like, you know, it seems like a lot of information, and it is, but it's a big problem. Okay, actually, I should stay here. Okay, any questions, comments? Oh, and here's my cute little world beyond the outlet, you know, the other side of the plug. So
There's one
yes.
one idea for you on this, to the point that there are you know, maybe a few archetypes of plays, right? There aren't too many conceptually different plays. They're kind of just different sleeves, or thinking of the same type of thing. If you came up with an archetype for each one, like a person, a human to follow through the journey, or a set of humans that you can tell a story about, right? So say there are really 3 different types of plays that you use as illustration just to illustrate the different types and put humans to each of them. Then that helps people wrap their head around the different steps of the journey.
I think that's really a great idea, because I know like sort of wealthy, touchy-feely types who would love that kind of thing, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, so I am trying to start to like show the little creatures here.
No, I mean like Jane Smith goes to her community town hall. She sits and sees this thing. Then I like walk Jane through the play, right? The experience that she goes through, that journey of that. Because if you have an archetype, if you have a human to wrap it around, people relate themselves to other humans. The little people figurines are awesome. Those are amazing.
Yeah.
And next design level thinking, take it up to have journeys for people to follow through.
But you mean that somebody kind of cast themselves into the archetype of the activist or the scientist or the data person? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like so to the extent that you have these different roles, just like actually come up with a persona. Yep, exactly. Or to the extent that you have a play. What's up?
One of them could be a funder, somebody who.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to each of those. Just it was merely more a point to that we're talking about plays, and that there may be most of the plays are similar versions of each other, right? And so there aren't too many different plays. They just have, you know, maybe the content is different, but the skills or the steps are similar, right? And so just walk through a couple of versions of those, of the ones that are the most distinct from each other, just so that people have an experience, a person to relate to.
Yeah, so that's actually a good question that I want to work out, because I do want to do the play-by-play and figure out what the different types of plays are. And I see your thing about the persona to follow, but what I really want to emphasize is there are many different people within. So you could follow one person through their journey in all the different ways that they intersect with plays. That's one approach. You know, you could follow your own character like through the playbook. But also when you do break down a play, you do want to look at the different layers that go into that play. And I really like the journey map concept, because you know, there's the customer, like Citizen Jane, and she comes and she's like, I want to have a solar panel, and okay, I'm going to select my type of solar. Like, she has her steps that she goes through, and while she's doing that, somebody like is, you know, there's the retail guy, the guy in the so they're doing all of these things, and you know, so this is really, and then the backstage, like, well, we got to go to the factory and get the thing. So we've got all of this stuff going on for any given play. So yeah, there is that stuff that we do want to break down. But
and agreed, like having a persona for those, or some representative of the players that they're interacting with, just makes that a bit more human, makes it a bit easier for people to follow along with.
Agreed. So definitely gotta do that.
You know, I just had this thought, Reswa, when you asked, are all the plays similar? That some people really might disagree with the premise of the whole thing, when you say that it's the goal is to have the best quality of life. Well, some people think that we should be cutting back tremendously and having nature and stuff like that, and that would be the best quality of life, is just to get rid of consumption, not to try to make it possible.
Let's go. That's over here to that speaks to this. Okay, so quality of life. Wow. All right. So wow, how would we look at that? How do we address that?
There's a whole organization about that. Richard Hyndman, I think his name is. I could find out, but he would be a good person to help with that part of the game. Heinberg. Resilience.org. A lot of people say that we can't go on living like this.
Okay. So quality of life is, I think, But do they look at it as a drop in quality of life? Like for me, I'm kind of a big fan of Marie Kondo and decluttering, so I don't see getting rid of stuff as a quality of life issue. I actually think less stuff is a better quality of life. And the real issue for me in getting rid of this stuff is that, but then I'm not buying stuff, and then our economy collapses.
Right, it's a difficult, right. But here's,
and
I think having nature be present is like a big, like the highest priority of having a good quality of life, where it seems like your whole thing is to actually get the most energy with the least discomfort or something.
Well, no, but how you define quality of life is important.
But actually, yes, you'll have to be careful with that.
We have to have a whole chapter on what is quality of life.
So not everybody's going to have the same solutions, because some of them might really just be, how can we cut back everything?
Yeah, and that's actually super important. That's part of the whole conflict thing, where we're forming and norming and storming, is like, what is your idea of a quality of life? And if you have assumptions and you haven't clarified that, you're working at odds with each other. And like I say, so there's different strokes for different folks. Some people will want a high energy, some people will want low energy, but either way, it's got to be zero carbon. So, I mean, if you go for the big, there's different assumptions. So the clearer you are on your assumptions up front, and that goes to this process, is we really hammer that out with their baseline and then where they want to get to, what they think a quality of life is. Do we have that? Okay, so this is probably where it goes. What is your idea of a good quality of life? Whoops. So that's probably a very important conversation that we need to have right away. And I should put that right here. Excellent. Cool. All right. What else?
This is a lot, Rezwan. How long have you been working at this?
Oh, 5 years.
Amazing. It is absolutely mind-blowing. And there's layers to this, clearly, and we can keep unpacking those layers. I really like Chris's point about the archetypes, where I came at archetypes from a different place. So you can take specific plays, but do you need a conceptual, not conceptual, some way of talking about plays in general, that you can lay out the structure of the play without getting into the particulars?
That's a good idea.
The structure of the play? Well, there is this, like, any given play.
Yeah, something like that.
And I did want to set up so like here I did the example, but I do want to set it up. Look at the breakdown, how we would process any given play. Like
Yeah. That's what I had in mind. Okay, so you have it.
And then I just thought if I just started with an example of one to begin with, but you're right.
Sure.
You want the generic, like, these are the steps you'd go through, and here's how it would apply to solar, and here's how it would apply to something else, and then just get people up and running. They're like, oh, I'm just going to apply that over here, and then you access other people's, like, you're able to delegate, because people will then on their own take off and apply a lens. So this be like a lens, the lens that you help people look through.
Okay.
Reswan, do you ever think about anybody's sphere of influence? Or, like, even though they might have great ideas, like, who's going to listen to their ideas or something like that? Are you thinking that this will become such an important competition that then the politicians and other people somehow?
I feel that what we're going to do is build up from basics. Once people get the basic skills and understand the basic, whoops, uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh,
You unlocked it.
Okay, got to get back into hand mode, so I just move things. Yeah, once people get the basics and start really, and that's how coaching works. You start with simple concepts and you just keep building on them. And then you go back to the basics and go back up. And I think once those concepts, the basic concepts, become ubiquitous, like just a simple thing like, this is a football field and here we got our energy shorthand, the more people start understanding it and using it, it becomes a shared language. And the goal is a shared understanding so that we can solve a problem together in a participatory way. Like, the better we get at that as individuals, like building on those skills. And that's what coaching is all about. You start with the person and you build those things and they build up until, people, it really catches. So yeah, and then of course, obviously, the more influential people that get involved in this, the quicker it'll spread as an idea. But the base, it's just the same, building on the same principles with whoever, like any person, an influential person, or just any, you know. Okay, anything else?
Just one question, Rezwan. When you were going through the plays, I guess I had thought previously, without knowing too much about how this worked yet, but I thought that a single play wouldn't be so hyper focused on like one type of energy, such as solar. I thought it would be a mix of energy, and that's your energy play, and then maybe you have a agriculture play or a food waste play or something. And so I guess what I'm asking is, isn't it the mix of energy that you're trying to get people to decide on, right? Because people don't care where the energy comes from. But they care about how their landscape looks, you know, they care about how expensive it is or whatever. So I'm wondering about that mix of different energy plays, how that works.
Yes, you are quite right. Yeah, so I just looked at that one play because your portfolio of plays, you are going to end up with a portfolio of plays, right? So your personal playbook, maybe that's right, your personal playbook. Yeah, that's interesting. So your personal playbook, you're going to go through your playbook, you're going to go look at all the different plays and choose which ones you like after you realize what's involved in each of them, right? You'll be like, oh no. And then if we figure out a really easy shorthand after, I mean, this is still just my first, well, it's like my 17th pass of this, but you figure out, oh, I ultimately, I don't like this, like the NIMBY coefficient isn't good for me. I want something else. So you compare it to your alternatives, you come up with your own portfolio. And then of course your fellow citizens will have their portfolios. So then you have to kind of negotiate with each other about which portfolio you want. But yeah, so that's a part of the process. That's where the game really happens. Once they get all the basics and understand this, and some people will just go along with somebody else. But yeah, deciding the portfolio of plays that goes all the way to the end. You know, that makes it all the way. Yeah.
Okay,
so,
another way of saying it is, how are people supposed to determine what that NIMBY coefficient is until they see how much solar they actually need in their energy mix? So it's just something to think about, I guess, as you kind of get focused on one.
So that's what I want to hear, the context. So there's a way of looking, like any given play has a theoretical maximum. Like how much of this play could you do? This is where you would talk about in the context. How much does solar get you for your state? Like that gets you 1 gigawatt down in New Jersey, 1.5 gigawatts, and you're a 30 gigawatt state. So you would understand that in the field of play, we're at this would take us, if we did this completely in the whole state, this would take us to give us the first gigawatt down, and now we just have like 19 more to go. Like you would see that like right up at the top. You would understand how much of this is the whole game. And that's it. And it's important to know, but you also have to focus on getting that game done and what's actually involved. But you would see it in context, and you would see that, okay, so I've decided, yes, I want to do the solar rooftop play, and I want to do these other plays. And so you would see your portfolio. Yeah, but you're right. We have to somehow show people as they're going through how much of the thing they filled up. So like how much of the bar they filled, kind of thing.
Mm.
Or I don't know if it's even possible to have visuals of like in physical reality what this new energy solution looks like if you do this much of it versus this much. You know, I don't know. Like I just think that the archetype journey is interesting, but I actually, in this case, I feel like you need a meta picture of like what all these windmills are going to look, you know, like you did in that video. I thought that was so helpful to see all the windmills lined up along the Jersey shoreline. You know, that kind of thing, I think, is going to be critical to have visuals early on.
Yeah, and that we'll have to capture in a better way here in the performance metric side, like the context and how it scales and like the land use. I mean, this is kind of what this is supposed to be.
Okay. All right.
And I guess here we should definitely put NIMBY coefficient here, but yeah. And yeah, we have to figure out how to visualize it. This is like a design question. How the heck do we visualize this every step of the, whoops, hello. See, we can go, wee. Love this thing.
Amazing.
Okay,
Amazing.
great.
So we're at 15 minutes to 11.
Okay. So what are you saying?
I'm saying I have to jump off pretty soon.
Okay, I think we did a lot. So and my mission was to get this clear and put it up on the web so that in case coronavirus takes me, we all know what we were trying to do, and you guys can take this from here, right? You guys are it's all very clear, right?
Totally got it.
All right.
But I would say I'd talk to you for a few minutes, not taped.
Okay, sure, we'll do that. So let's adjourn this meeting. Let me shut off the, okay, let me stop sharing this thing. Hello, how are you guys doing?
Right.
And I will now stop the recording. We're officially done with this, and then we can keep talking. So let me just stop recording.